Bernadette Glover, and the most fantastic employee in the city of Pasadena, except for Tim, and that is William Porras, who helps us so much. And to Bernadette Glover, who's our senior librarian, and to Roy, and to Raymond, and to Jessica. They're all fabulous, and I know all of you work with them throughout the year. And now it is my absolute delight to introduce our library director. And he has a long title, a lot of responsibilities, but I think most of you know Tim McDonald.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tim McDonald, Library Director for the City of Pasadena. Not too long of a title, but it is the best job in the city. I am so lucky to oversee all of the libraries across town and see all the exciting events and programs that happen and welcome the community for free. Everyone in the community is welcome to enter our libraries and take advantage of the resources we have here today. I have to say thank you to the Linda Vista Library Associates that have been planning outstanding programs all year long. The one today, I'm particularly excited to find out more about Paradise Springs, and welcome Justin Chapman. Thank you for being here today. Summer's around the corner. We're just about to turn the page on a new season, and for me, summer is about relaxation and taking adventures, and I hope the library will be part of your summer adventure this year. We all need to be reading. Come on in and lose yourself in the pages of a book. We need to get off of our screens this summer for a little bit of time and lose ourselves in a book, slow down, and all the brain research is telling us that time you spend with a book is good for our brains. We need to slow down, builds cognitive functioning, makes us more empathetic, and gives us an excuse to come to these beautiful spaces. This library is a special place in the community, and we like to think of it as a gathering place. And today proves that. We're so lucky to have a place where we can come together and connect, have some social time together, and learn something over out here too. So again, I'll say thank you to Justin, but mostly thank you to all of you for being supporters of the library. It's wonderful to see you here, and I can't wait to learn about this book. Thanks.
The Linda Vista Library Associates, I have to thank them. Starting with my dear friend, Fran Shelgren, who really manages the morning coffee. Thank you so much, Fran. Steve, who also makes it possible, and for Barb and Irina, who also do the cookies. They do a wonderful job for all of us, for you to enjoy and come and have the wonderful conversations I saw out there. Thank you so much. Now, I am the only one in this room that can say this. The only one. And that is, I know someone here who's better than me. And that is Marlene Decker and her wonderful husband, Bob. Marlene read Paradise Springs, and she said immediately, this has got to be a program. So here she is, Marlene.
Okay. Can you hear me? Are we good? Okay. I do want to thank a few people. This is not a one-man show for sure, but I did read this. Guy got, I think, right when it first came out. In fact, I had to open a Zelle account to pay him. And he said, I'll put it in your mailbox. And he did. So anyway, I want to introduce Justin. So I have a few words, more than a few words, but it takes less than 3 minutes. So beware. Justin Chapman is an award-winning journalist, author, travel writer, actor, director, producer, editor, poet, musician, and politician, among other things. In fact, he was the youngest elected official in LA County when he was elected a member of the Pasadena Town Council in 2005 at the ripe old age of 19. And that's what Justin sent me for his introduction. And I went, okay, come on, we've got more than this. So I did a little digging. Some of it he's approved of, some of it he doesn't know about, so here goes. He's a native Californian, calls Pasadena home for sure. He was a professional child actor, and for a number of years, and performed in dozens of commercials, television shows, plays, and movies. In the movie Problem Child 3, Justin had the lead role, and he was nominated Best Young Actor in the first annual Young Stars Award by The Hollywood Reporter in '95, I think. Justin went on to UC Berkeley, graduated with a bachelor's degree in mass communications and media studies, and then he threw his cares to the wind and by himself set off on an epic journey across 8 countries in Africa, from Cape Town, South Africa to Uganda, by bus, train, and boat. Along the way, he narrowly escaped being locked away in a mental institution, got into a life-threatening car crash, and chased down some riveting stories with local journalists. He later would write his first book, Saturnalia, traveling from Cape Town to Kampala in search of an African utopia. Returning home, Justin then attended USC and received a master's degree in public diplomacy, and while at SC served as editor-in-chief of the Public Diplomacy magazine and a staff writer at the Daily Trojan. Since then, he's written hundreds of articles, both print and digital publications, including KPC LAist, Alt Journal, Huffington Post, LA Weekly, Berkeley Political Review, Pasadena Weekly, Pasadena Now, and many others. He's a writer and host and producer of TV shows, Well Read with Justin Chapman, which I catch now and then, which is not, I guess, not weekly or monthly, and Pasadena Monthly, which is the 4th Friday of every month, and he has won multiple journalism awards from the LA Press Club, including 3 Place Awards, and I think he is just now up on the list for a couple of more awards. He currently serves, in his free time, as our field representative to Pasadena District 6 Councilman Steve Madison. So please give a warm welcome to Justin.
Thank you all so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Marlene, for that introduction. Thank you to the Linda Vista Library Associates, Pasadena Library, Tim, William. Thank you all so much. Bernadette. So I'm Justin Chapman, here to tell you about Paradise Springs, which was a debaucherous mountain resort in between Palmdale and Wrightwood that was owned by 2 actor brothers in the 1920s and 30s, where A-list Hollywood stars partied during Prohibition. Before that, I'll give you a little bit of information about me. Marlene already covered a lot of it. Pasadena-based writer, journalist. I was a professional child actor. As she mentioned, I was in a number of movies, TV shows, and commercials, including Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I played Trey Parker, one of the creators of South Park, as a kid in basketball. I played a young Chuck Norris in Walker, Texas Ranger. And I performed, a side note, I performed in that show with Jonathan Joss, who went on to voice the character of John Redcorn in King of the Hill. And he was just shot and killed by a neighbor last week. Allegedly because he was gay. It's a super tragic story, and I had just reconnected with him a few weeks ago. I was also as she mentioned, the Problem Child 3, among other things. After high school, got shifted from acting to journalism and writing and local politics. As she mentioned, I was elected to the Pasadena Town Council, age 19, re-elected in 2007, and then left that when I went up to Berkeley. Lived in Altadena for most of my life leading up to going to college. And then, and yes, my family home did burn down in the Eaton fire. We actually lost 2 homes. My parents are here, they own the house, and my brother lost his condo as well. This is my family in front of the cleared lot on Concha Street by Farnsworth Park. This is actually really interesting. This photo was taken by a woman who also lost her house, who used a camera from the 1930s and a lens from 1900. And she sets it up on this tripod, and you have to stand really still, and she takes the photo, and it's black and white, and then gets printed out onto a metal plate and put into solution. And she's doing hundreds of these of different families and putting together a book. It was in the LA Times. It's a really interesting project. As Marlene mentioned, I've written hundreds of articles for a couple dozen outlets. I've won a number of LA Press Club awards. I'm nominated as a finalist for 2 more. The award ceremony is on June 22nd. So one of them is for my TV show, Pasadena Monthly, which airs on Pasadena Media's TV channels, cable channels, streaming apps, YouTube. And then the other one is for an obituary I wrote about Kevin Urich, who was the longtime Pasadena Weekly editor and my mentor for many years. And he was a historian of Pasadena, knew everybody and knew everything about Pasadena. And the loss of his institutional knowledge was a huge blow to Pasadena. And I wrote a long obituary about him, and that's one of the nominations. And then, of course, I work as a field representative to Pasadena City Council member Steve Madison. And so I'm sure many of you are District 6 residents. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime about any issues related to the district or the city. J. Chapman at cityofpasadena.net. So enough about me. You're here to hear about Paradise Springs. So Paradise Springs is a surprisingly little-known camp with a very rich history. The property was originally owned by a Pasadena attorney named Louis Luckel in the early 1900s. Then it was owned by a silent film, this is Louis Luckel. Then it was owned by a silent film villain named Noah Berry Sr. and his brother, Wallace Berry. The camp was frequented by Charlie Chaplin, Joseph Kennedy, Francis X. Bushman, Gloria Swanson, Mary Pickford, William Randolph Hearst, Marion Davies, Jack Warner, Cecil B. DeMille, and many others. They threw wild parties there and brewed illegal homemade hooch during Prohibition, hosted tennis tournaments and gambling, and raised millions of trout. There's a natural spring that runs down through the middle of the property, and they would create these little trout pools and stock them with trout. It then switched gears and became a Christian camp for many decades. And in the late 20th century, so maybe 50 years or so or more, it was a Christian camp. And then it was sold in December 2017 to Hatopia, which is a French-owned glamping company, Glamorous Camping. And they have since renovated the property and reopened it with yurts that people can rent out. So indigenous peoples were, of course, the first to occupy the canyon where Paradise Springs is located. It's situated at an elevation of 5,200 feet and bordered on both sides by these really dramatic rock outcroppings and steep ridges and populated with giant oaks, evergreens, poplar, alder, sycamore, and cottonwoods trees. In 1910, Louis Luckel purchased the 165 acres that comprise Paradise Springs for about $200. 165 acres for about $200. Looking for a natural respite from the rigors and confrontational nature of courtroom battles, Luckel wanted to establish an upscale retirement campground for his family and friends. He set up 29 portable tents and cabins, and he and his guests went fishing and hunting for bears and antelopes and bighorn sheep. He wanted 7 sons, reportedly, but ended up with only one nature-hating daughter named Adelaide, who she preferred the gentility and social graces of Pasadena to the rugged solitude and wilderness of Paradise Springs. During her first visit to the property at age 13, Adelaide shrieked when she realized she'd have to walk on dirt. She hopped back into the limousine, never to return. She soon convinced her father to sell the property, leading to a couple of hard-partying actor brothers, turning the place, the Berries, turning the place into a hedonistic wonderland for the early stars of Hollywood. These are some of the early cabins. Noah Berry Sr. was born in 1882 and grew up on a farm in Missouri. He left home at 14 to sell newspapers in Kansas City, then sold peanuts and candy in theaters and circuses. While selling lemon drops at the Gillis Theater in Kansas City, his booming voice caught the attention of actor Ned Risley, who convinced Barry to start a singing career, and that led to melodramas. His young son, Noah Barry Jr., who would become a successful actor himself in westerns and, of course, the Rockford Files, suffered a serious illness, leaving him with an $8,000 medical bill. Broke, Noah Barry Sr. arrived in LA and booked a role in a suit of armor in Cecil B. DeMille's 1916 movie about Joan of Arc called Joan the Woman. Paramount signed him and typecast him as a villain in silent movies, such as 1921's Tolerable David, 1923's The Spoilers, and 1926's Bogust. A perennial nature lover and self-styled mountain man, Barry Sr. often went hunting in the hills around Mount Baldy. While on a hunting trip in the area, in 1915, Barry Sr. happened upon Paradise Springs and took to it immediately. With the financial aid of his brother Wallace, who was also an actor, and later won an Academy Award for Best Actor for 1931's The Champ, as well as funding from actors Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford, he made an offer to purchase the property from Luckel. Adelaide at first convinced her father to accept the offer, and he agreed, but included a shrewd clause in the sales contract that should the Barrys ever miss a mortgage payment or declare bankruptcy, the property would revert back to Louis Luckel, the Pasadena attorney, who later bequeathed the property to Adelaide in his will when just that turn of events came to fruition decades later. The Barry brothers' plan for the property was to cater to the Hollywood elite. They built an elegant ballroom and a dining hall with gray and vine-colored stone archway entrances and a high beam ceiling, a polished hardwood dance floor, 45-foot redwood bar manned by several bartenders, and a stage big enough for a 22-piece orchestra. They also built 27 stone cabins, an Olympic-sized swimming pool. There you go. Where Tarzan star Johnny Weissmuller trained for the Olympics. And they also had a tennis court, 36 fish hatcheries consisting of a series of rock and mortar ponds through which the natural spring stream flowed and stocked them with 1 million trout, as I mentioned. Barry Sr. built his own river rock cabin next to the peaceful cascading ponds of Paradise Springs and called his new retreat Noah Barry's Paradise Trout Club. Here's a letter Barry wrote to Cecil B. DeMille in 1927 asking him to invest in the club. Here's a 1933 book by a British travel writer with a chapter about Paradise Springs. And here's this is a caricature of Noah Barry Sr. on the left. And here's a map in the book showing Noah Barry's hideaway just north of Pasadena. No, Barry Sr. Just on the other side of the mountains here. The brothers soon unveiled their getaway resort for Hollywood stars as the Roaring Twenties got underway. For 7 years, the Trout Club sold 1,500 pounds of fish every other week to two posh swinging Hollywood establishments, the Coconut Grove nightclub at the Ambassador Hotel and the Brown Derby restaurant, two hot spots to see and be seen in Old Hollywood if ever there were any. Now, a lot of this information came from Noah Barry Jr., who lived at Paradise Springs for a number of years in the 20s and 30s, and Bill Hunt, who was the marketing director when it was a Christian camp that operated on the Paradise Springs property from about 1981 to 2017. He interviewed Barry Jr. for 3 days in August 1994, shortly before Barry Jr. died of cerebral thrombosis at the age of 81. Bill Hunt said, "You wouldn't believe some of the stuff he told me about what went on at Paradise Springs during the 1920s and 30s when the Barry brothers owned it. Everything was so illegal. Some stuff I didn't even want to write down. It was sordid. It was unbelievable." Barry Jr. called Paradise Springs his father's hanky-panky place. For example, in 1923, Charlie Chaplin built a rickety, winding staircase, still standing today, by himself in Barry Sr.'s cabin, Noah's Ark. The stairs led up to a second-floor bedroom that Chaplin allegedly used for his extramarital romantic trysts. It was Barry Jr.'s job to warn Chaplin when his wife was coming up the hill so he and his mistress could escape out the back window. Hunt said Charlie Chaplin loved Paradise Springs and invested heavily in its operations and events. For a while, money was no object to the Berries. They added a small zoo to the property, and it had a lot of exotic animals. In its heyday during Prohibition, Paradise Springs hosted up to 1,000 guests each weekend, including the Hollywood elite of the time. The Berries also had a fierce rivalry going with newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst and his Hearst Castle in St. Simeon. In 1928, during one of the many lavish, exclusive parties thrown by the Berries in Paradise Springs' Grand Ballroom, Hearst allegedly exacted his revenge. The structure had 8 stone archway entrances, one of which was painted red. That red door was reserved for the diva of the weekend, usually Gloria Swanson. Barry Jr. told Hunt that during a party in May 1928, the ballroom was packed with 1,000 people. Shortly after Joseph Kennedy escorted Swanson through the red door and they made their grand entrance and took the seats of honor, there was a loud knock at that red door. When it opened, a giant buffalo charged past him into the ballroom, taken from the compound zoo and allegedly stationed there by Hearst's goons. Pandemonium broke out in the ballroom. The confused animals slid across the dance floor and knocked over tables and chairs as celebrities and starlets in formal attire screamed and scrambled. Teenage Barry Jr. ran up to Noah's Ark, his father's cabin, and yelled, "Dad, there's a buffalo in the ballroom." Barry Sr. hurried down to the ballroom, grabbed a shotgun from behind the bar, jumped up on top of the bar, and shot the beast between the eyes. He then invited his guests to return the following weekend for a free buffalo barbecue. The Trout Club and Barry Sr.'s Paradise did not last forever, however. In 1930, the Grand Ballroom was destroyed by a mysterious fire. Only the stone arches survived, which remained until Hitopia, the French company that now owns it, renovated the property and removed the arches in 2021 due to earthquake safety concerns. This is where the ballroom once stood. These are the arches. This is where the ballroom once stood. It also turned out that the mountain water was too cold for trout propagation, upon which Barry Sr.'s business plan was dependent. And his box office draw started to fade. And he went bankrupt in 1940, triggering the clause in the original sales contract with Louis Luckel, the Pasadena attorney, that reverted the entire 165-acre property back to him and the attorney who had originally sold Paradise Springs to Barry Sr. Barry Sr. died in 1946 of a heart attack at age 64, and his brother Wallace died 3 years later, also age 64. Upon Luckel's death in 1952, his daughter Adelaide came into possession of Paradise Springs per his will. Adelaide leased the property to a succession of entrepreneurs over the next few years to operate as limited resort businesses, but none of them had much success in turning a profit. She then entrusted management of the property to her nephew, Lawrence Gunner Payne, who operated a Christian camp there in stark contrast to the property's racy past. The camp's new rules were no alcohol, no gambling, and no dances. Sunday services took the place of debaucherous ballroom shindigs, with no interruptions from party crashing buffalo. Paradise Springs Campground opened in spring 1971, but the effort drained the Payne family so much that by 1981, Payne sold it to 4 families who continued the Christian emphasis and called it Big Rock Creek Camp. It also had a zoo, albeit with a somewhat less exotic variety of beasts. By 2017, without a significant amount of new investment, the 4 families who owned Big Rock Creek Camp felt they could no longer continue to operate the camp. They were in talks to sell the property to Nestle, the Swiss multinational food and beverage conglomerate, which was interested in the water from the spring on the property that generates up to 1 million gallons a day. And they've taken over other areas of San Bernardino Mountains, and it's been very controversial. Luckily, the families decided to sell to the French glamping company instead, Hitopia. And Hitopia was founded in France in 2000, and they have a number of these types of camps, glamping camps in France and around Europe and in New York, and this was the first one on the West Coast in California. They have another one up in wine country, and they're looking at other countries as well. They plan to keep Paradise Springs as a camp with a focus on families and to invest in upgrading the property. Hitopia is very interested in the history and culture of Paradise Springs, and they highlight that history, including Chaplin's hand-built staircase. They've renovated it, but they've kept a lot of that history, that the staircase, which you can't go up. It wouldn't be safe to walk up Chaplin's staircase at this point. But they maintain many of the existing structures, cabins, river rock ponds, the kitchen, the pool, other features that survive from the Barry, Payne, and Big Rock Creek camp eras. And how I came to know about Paradise Springs is that my wife's uncle was a friend of the founder of Hitopia. So after Hitopia bought it, but before they renovated it, we visited Paradise Springs, interviewed the former Christian camp owners and the Hitopia owners. And I wrote 2 articles about Paradise Springs, one in LAist.com, which won a first place LA Press Club Journalism Award, and one in Pasadena Now, which was also nominated. Then I wrote a much longer version, which Hitopia itself published as a book, and that's this one here. The book, in December, the book was a finalist in the nonfiction book category of the LA Press Club's National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Awards. I'm also giving a talk at Paradise Springs itself on June 28th. It'll be much the same presentation. It's an hour and a half away, but I do encourage everyone to go check out Paradise Springs when you can. It's really quite beautiful and relaxing. It's one of my favorite places. And this is where you would stay. They also have a couple of cabins, including Noah's Ark with the Chaplin staircase. There's bathrooms in there and a little kitchen area and little private rooms with bunk beds, and it's really comfortable. It's not like you're roughing it out, on the campground. So right now the book is only sold at Paradise Springs Camp Store or through me. I do have a number of copies here, and if I run out and there's more people that want some, I'm getting more when I go to Paradise Springs at the end of June, so I can get you a copy early July. I can read an excerpt or two from the book, and then I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you again to the Linda Vista Associates and the library for having me. Let's see. Okay, I'll expand a little bit on the Buffalo scene. In its heyday during Prohibition, Paradise Springs hosted up to 1,000 guests each weekend, including Chaplin, Pickford, Swanson, Fairbanks, Jack Warner, Cecil B. DeMille, W.C. Fields, William Randolph Hearst, and Marion Davies, Francis Bushman, and many others, including in the later years, John Wayne. In 1928, the club hosted a championship tennis tournament. Olympic gold medal winning swimmer Johnny Weissmuller, who played Tarzan in 12 of the original films in the 1930s and 40s, trained for 3 years in Paradise Springs swimming pool. Glamorous Hollywood stars of the 1920s and 30s arrived by limousine for a weekend of bootleg liquor, on-site gambling, and the services of would-be starlets, Bill Hunt wrote. The original clubhouse was an elegant showplace with high-beam ceiling, the arch rock entrance to the ballroom, and a polished hardwood dance floor. The Paradise Trout Club was notorious for its extravagant parties. A longtime nearby resident who lived there in the 50s said it was pretty wild back then. Gambling, bathtub gin, and a string of girls. Illegal during Prohibition, they homebrewed bathtub gin, 100-proof lemonade in an alcohol still, and gallon jugs of moonshine. They hosted several gambling games, though not as a licensed casino. They installed one of the first telephones in the area and paid scouts to keep an eye out for the law. Since it took a couple hours for deputies to drive up from San Bernardino, the Berries had plenty of time to hide all evidence of the hooch and gambling operations before the fuzz arrived. The zoo that they had added to the property had an elephant, kangaroos, buffaloes, and camels. And Wallace, the youngest of 3 boys, including Noah Berry Sr., was born in 1885 in Clay County, Missouri. At 1902, Wallace ran away from home to join the Ringling Brothers Circus as an assistant elephant trainer. Wallace quit the circus job after 2 years, and in 1904 to join his brother Barry Sr. on the New York stage, appearing in several musical variety shows popular at that time. In 1915, he appeared in a play with the young ingenue Gloria Swanson, and a year later they got married when he was 30 and she was 17. The couple manufactured fights to get publicity in the press, in the tabloids. Moving to Hollywood, Wallace became a favorite at Paramount Studios on the silent screen. After Wallace and Swanson got divorced, Swanson frequently returned to Paradise Springs in the late 20s on the arm of banker and film financier Joseph Kennedy Sr., father of future President John F. Kennedy. As I mentioned, Joseph Kennedy and the Barrys also had a fierce rivalry going with newspaper magnate Hearst and their respective resorts. Hearst Castle was much further away from Hollywood than Paradise Springs was, and Hearst spent a fortune bringing A-stars to San Simeon by private passenger trains, rather than having them attend Barry's Paradise Springs. Bill Hunt had told a newspaper reporter that the week San Simeon opened, 2 of Hearst's thugs allegedly tried to torch Paradise Springs. In all, Hearst tried 9 times, he said. Circa 1923, Swanson pushed Hearst's mistress Marion Davies into the pool at Paradise Springs. Hearst got mad and almost shot Wallace Berry. Then he left in a huff to expand San Simeon and dwarf Paradise Springs. And in 1928, during one of the many lavish, exclusive parties thrown by the Berrys in Paradise Springs' Grand Ballroom, Hearst exacted his revenge. The structure had the 8 stone archways, as I mentioned, and one was the red door for the Diva of the Weekend. And during that party in May 1928, the ballroom was packed with stars, and Douglas Fairbanks and Mae West were dancing with Greta Garbo. Shortly after Kennedy escorted Swanson through the red door and they made their grand entrance and took the seats of honor, there was a loud knock at the red door. An enraged Kennedy, thinking it was Jack Warner or Cecil B. DeMille playing a prank, opened the door and a giant bison charged past him into the ballroom. Taken from the compound zoo, pandemonium broke out. The confused animal slid across the dance floor and knocked over tables and chairs. Teenage Barry Jr. ran up to his father's cabin, and that's when he ran up, grabbed the shotgun, and shot him. He apologized and then invited all his guests back for free buffalo barbecue, and Charlie Chaplin had a taxidermist from Brooklyn fly to LA to stuff and mount the buffalo's head before the subsequent party.
Is it there? Is the buffalo head there?
No. It was probably in the ballroom, probably burned down in the fire. So as I mentioned, the Barrys ran into financial troubles. It was too cold for trout propagation. Barry Sr., his wife filed for divorce. In 1930, a cook at the Trout Club sued him for nearly $2,000 in damages for rough treatment. According to the LA Times, Barry struck the cook in the mouth and threw him forcibly out of the club building, compelling him to remain outside in the cold for 5 hours. The same year, vandals broke in and destroyed showcases, damaged cars, and stole a truck and $1,000 worth of food and cigarettes. And in 1930, the Grand Ballroom was destroyed, and in 1938, there was a major flood that wiped out a lot of it as well, and also caused a lot of damage throughout LA County. So all these disasters and misfortunes, compounded by the Great Depression, proved to be too much. Paradise Trout Club and the Barrys went bankrupt, triggering the sales contract, went back to Louis Luckel. There's not a lot of records about what happened in the 1940s and 50s. So there's a gap there that I'm still looking into filling about what happened in between the Hollywood era and the Christian Camp era. And so my plan is to expand this book even further and have go in depth into the Barry brothers' careers and early Hollywood during the Prohibition and more of Chaplin's activities, and sort of expand the book into an even fuller length book. So thank you again for coming. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
The early days sound kind of like the movie Babylon. Did the existence of Paradise Springs influence that movie?
I don't think so. This was a lot of people hadn't known about this story. There's not a lot of mention of it in biographies of Chaplin or a Swanson. I've been on a hunt for a lot of those hard-to-find biographies of Swanson or Marion Davies, and there's little references to it. But a lot of the information came from Noah Berry Jr. himself, the son of the brother who owned it. And then also the marketing director of the Christian camp, Bill Hunt, who went and interviewed it for several days. And there were a couple of small newspapers in the Antelope Valley that had written a couple of articles about this back in the 90s. But other than that, it wasn't very well known. So I think they try to keep it hidden for a long time.
Thank you.
Do you know if there was any reciprocity between Paradise Springs and clubs like the Uplifters Club?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard of the Uplifters Club. But.
Yeah, just curious. And also, I tried to contact those people from Hatopia probably around 2017. Emailed, left phone messages, never got a human. And it was just the weirdest thing. And I thought, I was just going to drive up there, and I thought, no, maybe I should call. Anyway, I wonder, do you know anything about that? Like, they just never answer or never respond, or
Right.
they seem unreachable.
Well, in 2017, they bought it in December 2017, and then for 2 or 3 years, maybe even more, they were renovating it, and it wasn't operating. And it wasn't until summer 2021 that it reopened, and that was a soft open that summer. And then in 2022, it was a larger opening. And they're also based in France, so there's probably a disconnect there, but I can certainly put you in touch with them for sure.
Justin?
Yes.
Writers are always writing. Do you have a new project?
Yes, I do. Thank you for asking. I have a new book I'm working on that I'm very excited about. It's about this gentleman named Mad Mike Hughes. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was a flat earther and a daredevil, and he built steam rockets and launched himself in the steam rockets a couple thousand feet into the air. And his ultimate goal was to generate money and publicity from these steam rocket launches to raise a couple $1 million and build what's called a raccoon, part rocket, part balloon. Okay, and this is an old Cold War era craft. The balloon takes it up 20,000 feet, and then the rocket detaches and shoots up the remaining 40,000 feet to get up to the edge of space. He wanted to see the shape of the planet for himself. He was a flat earther. There's a dispute as to whether he actually believed the Earth was flat or he was just using that to generate controversy. And people who are very close to him are split on that question. You know, his partner, his PR rep, his sons, and even me and my wife have do not have reach the same conclusion on that topic. So she thought it was all BS, but I thought it was genuine because he believed in a number of other conspiracy theories that he acted on. For example, there's this one that's sort of an offshoot of sovereign citizen theory. They're very anti-government group of individuals across the United States. He believed that your name in all caps, all capital letters, like on your birth certificate or passport, is not actually your name, it's a business entity that anyone can buy and own. And so he purchased the entities of the capital names of Barack Obama and Gavin Newsom and Zuckerberg and all these people, and then sued them in San Bernardino court, saying, "You're using my property, you owe me millions of dollars." And when he died, there were dozens of lawsuits lingering in San Bernardino court. I got all of the court records from it. So there were things like that he actually took, steps in the real world. And so he believed that stuff. He did 3 successful rocket launches in 2014, 2018, and 2020. The first 2 he barely survived by the skin of his teeth, ripped up parachutes that are coming down out in the desert. And then in 2020, right before the pandemic really hit, it was the month before everything shut down, my wife and I went out to the desert near Barstow, where he was going to do his 3rd rocket launch. And we heard about it, it wasn't publicized, we heard about it because he spoke at the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles, which was at the time a men-only travel club. And so he came and spoke there, talked about his adventures, and mentioned offhand it's going to be at this place at this time on this date. And so we went out there just, hopefully, because a bunch of other attempts had failed. He didn't actually launch for various things that went wrong. So it was sort of a gamble going several hours out there, hoping that that it would happen. So we go out there, we find it, and we spoke to him beforehand. He's clearly very nervous, and there's about 50 people there. None of them journalists. We were the only reporters there, and he got into his rocket. And I started filming on my phone, and it launched, and a parachute flew off, but there were 3 others on the rocket, and it disappears into the sky. You can't even see it anymore, and then it just turns around and nosedives straight down into the desert floor. And I'm filming it the entire time. And he must have been knocked out or had a heart attack or something, because he didn't launch the other 3 parachutes that were on the rocket, and he stubbornly refused to set up like an automatic parachute system, if a dead man switch or something. His partner, who I've interviewed quite extensively, Waldo Stakes, was like, they were butting heads about that kind of stuff, and he was just stubborn about it, and it cost him his life. And I had interviewed Mad Mike at his home. I knew his son, who was estranged from Mad Mike, and his ex-wife, and Waldo's partner, his PR rep. And so I've written a book about his life and his daredevil exploits. He used to jump limousines over 100 feet. He has a Guinness record for jumping the longest limousine jump, 2002. And then it's also exploring early rocketry history and the early raccoon, the balloon and rocket craft in the Cold War, its history, and how that led up to these 2 guys, Mad Mike Hughes and Waldo, building these steam rockets, and then also exploring the flat Earth stuff, the other conspiracy theories that he was part of, his court cases and all that stuff. So that's nearly complete, and that should be coming out hopefully soon. So that's called The Misadventures of Mad Mike Hughes.
So, are there any other characters you're anticipating?
There's always a couple. The one about Mad Mike has really taken up a lot of time and energy, because if it was just about him and his life, it'd be done a long time ago. But because I added the early rocketry history, early steam rocket history, and the raccoon and all that required extensive research. And so that's really prolonged it. I mean, it's over 5 years ago that the rocket launch happened. Also about the video of the rocket launch, I posted it to then Twitter immediately afterward, and it went viral with 5 million views in 3 days. And newspapers from all over the world, New York Times, Washington Post, Rolling Stone, all over. It was just fielding media interviews from these outlets for several days. And so you'll see at the media coverage at the time, I'm just like quoted everywhere in that, because there's no one else filming it there. I mean, there was a TV channel, a TV crew for Science Channel filming a documentary about Mad Mike Hughes, and so they were there, but it wasn't stuff they were going to post right away. That actually did end up in a TV show on Discovery Plus years later. But we were the only people there who were reporting it out to the world. So
I think we know what our program will be in a year.
That's just scratching the surface. This guy was a real character. Yes.
Do you recommend a day trip to Paradise Springs?
Sure. Yeah, you could go out there and check it out for a day. I mean, it's an hour and a half away, but you can cut through the Angeles National Forest to get there, and it's really beautiful. I don't know that the facilities would be available to use, like the pool or trout fishing or anything, unless you're actually a guest there. But I would certainly recommend like a weekend stay or something. It's really relaxing there. Ken?
So what do you do for food up there? You bring it in? Do they have it? Do they have facilities?
They have a restaurant. Yeah, they have facilities. Their cafe.
So you could drive up, have lunch, and come back?
Yes, you could go up and do that. That's part of the day trip. Yeah. And it's interesting just to see the Noah's Ark cabin with Chaplin staircase is there. You can rent that out. It's not cheap, but it's there.
About the water. You said there's this beautiful stream. Water is at such a premium. Who is it? Their water? They have rights to the water?
Yes.
Camps water? Where does the water come from?
I believe so. It pops up out of the ground at the top of their property. It runs down through and then disappears back into the ground at the end. And so they use that to fill the pool. They use that for the trout fishing. I haven't heard of any other uses, but it's really like cold and refreshing and fresh water.
He's not exactly hawking his book, so I will. It's a fun read. There's a lot more to it than what you've heard. It's a whole $22. I think you'll enjoy it, so, yeah. I know he wasn't gonna say that.
Thank you. And thank you all, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.